Looks like everyone's here, so this meeting of the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trustees Committee is called to order. Don, could you take roll to verify quorum?
Fran McGregor,
Here.
Mary Lamont,
Here.
Jeffrey Kirsch,
Here.
Mark Mather,
Here.
Alex Taylor.
Here.
Great, great, good to see everybody. Hopefully the summer's treating you all well. Okay, we move on to section 2 of our agenda today. And the first agenda item is 2.01, approval of the minutes of the March 19, 2026 meeting of the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trustees Committee. Were there, want to do public comments before changes? Okay, I'll take public comment.
Okay.
Any public comment out there? Thomas, come on, man.
All right.
Okay, seeing no public comment, do I have any changes or corrections to the minutes? See Mr. Kirsch looking them over, so I'm going to give him a minute. Hopefully that looks good. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Fran McGregor, I move we approve the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Alex Taylor, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. We are now on to agenda item 2.02. This is for presentation and discussion only. This is a presentation of our unaudited third quarter financial statements. Mindy, would you like to walk us through those?
Okay, thank you. Mindy Capron for the record. On page 8 of 23, I'm looking at the assets and liabilities through March 31st. You will see RBIF has $22,077,000 in that account, and then OPEB US Bank has $74,831,000. So our total assets are $96,967,336 through the end of March 2026. And then if you turn to page 9, the additions and deductions on the information, our change in that position through March 31st is an increase of $3,185,194, and of that is an unrealized loss of 2.732. So I just wanted to, gain, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. It's a gain, unrealized, however. So that brings us down to the net position of 96,967. Is there any questions that I can answer for anybody?
When is the next disbursement due?
We'll calculate it in June, and then it'll be July or August when we move the money.
Any estimate of the figure?
I would estimate it's close to what you approved, around 6 million.
One other question. What would be the process for raising money from here? Where would it be pulled from specifically? Or, sorry if that's a better question for Mark.
It gets pulled out of US Bank. We have a liquidity part of that fund, or of that investment, so we pull that out of the liquidity part of it.
Yeah, I believe, and Tara Hagan from Buckhead is here, but I believe the US strips we buy mature each May. And so those matured, and the proceeds were deposited in that liquidity account along with some other investments. So they're kind of being held in that liquidity account until this distribution.
Okay, so where I'm going with this, I was just trying to assess, it's coming out of generally already liquid instruments, not like an equity portfolio at present.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Just under 97 million. Okay, very good. We'll move on to agenda item 2.03. This is a presentation by BCM Capital, Tara Hagan, of the quarterly investment report, again, for the period ended March 31st. Welcome, Tara.
Good afternoon, members of the board and staff. Tara Hagan with Buckhead Capital. I'm here to present the first quarter, calendar quarter, I should say, 2026 report for a period ended March 31st. If you could turn to page 13 of the board packet, I'm going to start there. Market value of the trust as of March 31st was $96.9 million. And on the, I did want to bring one correction to your attention. You'll notice that the average rating in the upper left-hand corner at the bottom says A-. That should be AA, because if you look at the lower quadrant, the distribution by quality, you can see that 76.1% of the portfolio is AA, which is going to be your U.S. strips investments. So anyway, I apologize for that. We'll get that corrected and turn it back around to staff. Not sure what happened there, but that should say AA.
Hey,
And then-
hey,
oh,
Tara, since you're on that chart,
Yes.
why would there be 22.8 million shown as not rated?
That's going to be your RBEF fund.
Oh, okay, right.
Yep.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yep. So speaking of that, you have your 3 different buckets within the trust fund. We talked about the liquidity account. That's a combination right now of money market funds. I think it's about as of March 31st, sorry, a little over $1 million in money market investment. And then we did have a U.S. Treasury bill in there, about $3.3 million. Your matching account, not to belabor it, I think we all remember these are the U.S. strips that then mature consistent with those liabilities that you anticipate, so each May. And then the excess monies, that's your Nevada RBEF investments, which includes the equities portion. On page 14, here are ending market values as of March 31st, and then the unrealized gain loss. So just to stop here for a second, I'll talk a little bit more on the RBIF when we get to that part of the slide. But I do want to take this opportunity to talk about that 2.9, a little more, 2.9 million in unrealized loss for those strips. And just to give you a sense of, these were purchased back in August of 2024. So the market rate there was closer to 4%. So we have seen a pretty significant steepening of that yield curve, particularly in the 20-year, the 10-7, and you can kind of see where that, you can see bond by bond on page 19, and you can see where you get into that 15-20 year, that's your larger loss, because we really just have, like I said, seen an incredible steepening of that since those were purchased. So, like I said, to give you a sense, as of March 31st, that 20-year was at 4.88%, so almost 4.9. So a good 70 basis points almost of that steepening on that curve. So that's what's driving that unrealized loss number. And you can see the 4.4 million in the liquidity account there. Next page, I want to thank Mindy for this. We put together a little bit different slide this time. We thought it was important to, we're going to take a look more at the market value, and we tend to look at it on a calendar year. So we wanted to give you a sense of, from a fiscal year basis, what the portfolio looks like. So from a July 1 of last year to March 31. So this fiscal year to date picture is a little bit more positive in terms of that market value. you do see almost a $800,000 gain, unrealized. On the matching program, almost $700,000 on the RBIF. So that just gives you a little bit better sense where that you could see that steepening did really occur in the latter part of the fiscal year. And then that second bucket, just want to better align with some of the reports that staff has. We did want to give you a sense of this U.S. Treasury strips were bought at a pretty deep discount. And so that's, quite a bit below par. And those get closer and closer to maturity. Each time we're gonna, it's gonna accrete that amount to get it closer to that par amount. So that's really, you see that gain in the matching program of the 4.4 million. And that's that accretion difference between to get you to the discount that we bought it out. And then when it matures, obviously, it's gonna mature at par. So that's accounting for that a little bit differently, which is more how staff is gonna look at that. So just a little bit different look to be closer to kind of what you're used to with staff reports. And then I'm going to skip over to page 17. We'll talk a little bit about, this is, I think, probably one of the first unrealized losses that you've seen on the equity portfolio since you started, at least since I started maybe with the board. But just to give you a sense, obviously fiscal year to date, so that July 1 through March 31, it is a positive 5.5%. I know that this doesn't show a quarterly, so I just wanted to give you a sense of the largest contributor to that decline was the S&P 500. So that was down 4.3% for the quarter. Really negligible for the MSCI World ex-US, was less than 1%, about 60 to 70 basis points, and a little bit of loss there in that bond fund of about 50 basis points. So you're really saying, like I said, that largest contributor to that unrealized loss is the S&P 500 index fund.
These are 331 figures.
331.
And presumably, I'm just trying to think back that far, but the Iran war would have made a pretty big market dislocation. Generally come back since less conflict. I'm just, do you have a sense of the timing of the Iran conflict and sort of the depths of the market that it produced with respect to, has it come back?
I think it's come back to a little bit flatter. Don't quote me on that, but I think you're a little flatter at this point within the portfolio. So yeah, it's at least come back from those losses that were probably primarily in February at that, first quarter. So,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Tara, I guess it's, I mean, I hear the words and they make sense to me, but it's hard to just kind of look at the chart on 17 and understand and correlate the numbers to the words, because PERS doesn't give a quarterly return here.
Yeah.
And they just give a fiscal year return. So am I correct in hearing you basically say, if we had gone back and looked at like the fiscal year-to-date return for U.S. stocks as of 12/31/25, it would have been higher than 6.2%?
Yes.
So we lost,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I mean, just for
Yeah,
those
thank
trying
you.
to read it and
Yeah.
patch it all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to paint a little bit better picture since, like you said, there isn't that quarterly return, unfortunately. But I think, you look at the 12/31, just the chart below with the 22.5 million,
Right.
and then you see that decline. I wanted to give you a sense of kind of where that was coming from.
Yeah.
Which is, like I said, mainly that S&P 500 index.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we touched on a little bit, page 19, that just gives you a sense of, those are your US strips, except for, I will just point out that second line, that 3.3 million treasury, that's the bond that's held in the liquidity account. So you'll just You'll notice that has a June maturity date, so it kind of pops off the page. But that just gives you a sense of, like I said, the unrealized loss bond by bond. And then the RPIF is also incorporated on page 20. So it does have the entire trust portfolio there. And then just lastly, we also, on page 21, we added the fiscal year to date, just to give you a little, so this is the entire portfolio at the 3.48%, and that can kind of tie back to that RBIF of the 5.5, so you can see how those equities are, helping, lift that portfolio's performance as it should. So, and with that, that's all I had. Happy to take any questions.
Is Buckhead taking any position or have any thoughts with respect to just path of interest rates and inflation? Obviously, that's something that has changed a little bit since our last meeting with respect to, again, driven by conflict in Iran.
Yeah, so at this point, our portfolio is pretty neutral-ish, is what we're saying. I think that, like I said, we have seen that steepening, which I don't, necessarily know that we all expected, but then these inflationary pressures have just gotten, with the Iran war, have gotten more and more, so that's, making that steepening even greater. But I think we don't really anticipate an increase in interest rates. I mean, I think, there's kind of that 50-50 in the market right now, but, we do feel like longer down the road, we're still going to be in a declining interest rate environment. Okay.
Maybe something we could work on would be not necessarily an attribution analysis, but just a breakout of the return and the different accounts returns, right? And okay, of the 3.48, how much did RBIF contribute versus being dragged down by, right, the matching account or whatever the case may be. Maybe something we can kind of just provide some information on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put that together for the next meeting for fiscal year end.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
that would be
we'll do
good.
the, obviously,
Yeah.
the entire time period, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
Okay.
great idea.
okay. Again, this was just for discussion only, no action needed, but does anyone else have any questions? I'm sorry, did you have anything more to?
No,
Okay, go over.
It's not really a question. I just want to, we've talked about it a little bit previously at other meetings. I just want to be mindful of the fact that in my view, probably the biggest risk to the portfolio is inflation, healthcare inflation, and just overall inflation. Yeah, we have matching. Yes, we have, in highly rated, the gold standard of fixed income. But we don't have any TIPS type exposure. We do have equity portfolio and we're overfunded, so I don't view tremendous risks to what we're trying to achieve. But the biggest one remains inflation, and the past several months, we've seen a surge.
Yes.
And I just think, I don't think this is not an action item, I don't think action is warranted at present, but I also do think, remaining mindful and keeping it top of mind that inflation is our biggest risk. It's happening in the data, and, we should have ongoing conversations and think about how to mitigate that risk.
Yeah. Except the federal government's going to recalculate inflation.
Yeah,
And then it
well-
won't be a problem.
Well,
Magically, it won't be a problem.
I mean, one thing the government could do is, it's a strategy, inflate its way out of debt.
Yes, it could.
And we are big holders of that debt, and it works adversely to our mandate. So I'm not saying, I think it would be a rather big, medium-sized endeavor to decide that we wanted to shift to something add tips exposure or inflation hedge, and I think generally we're in pretty good shape, given we're overfunded and we have an equity portfolio that is overproduced. But at the same time, this is a risk tolerance exercise, and that's the biggest risk. And this past quarter, since our last meeting, it seemed like it worked against us in a way that we did not, that people were not anticipating.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tara. Appreciate it. So our last agenda item, at least in this section, is a presentation, discussion, and possible action to approve the OPEB budget. Mindy, were you prepared to just, okay. I'll let you go through that.
Okay, thank you, Mindy Capron for the record. This is the FY '27 OPEB trust fund budget, and you can see additions the total additions we're budgeting for $6,032,830. Excuse me, the deductions, we're budgeting $6,403,283. I would point out that the PEB, the retiree medical, and the retiree life, those are the components that we come to you and ask to have, the funds taken out of OPEB, and those total 6.2 million for next year, which is a little bit higher than this past year. So we're budgeting a deficit of $370,453 for the budget. Does anybody have any questions?
Which means we're just drawing down on the principal balance of our investment holdings, which is what the plan is.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yep.
Wait, you're saying we're drawing down 370 of equity exposure, is that correct?
No, the matching program.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will take public comment on this item. It is an action item. Last chance. Okay. All right. Do I have a motion, and then I'll take a second, then we can deliberate further if necessary?
Mary Lamont, I move that we approve FY '27 other post-employment benefits trust fund budget.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Fran McGregor, I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments or discussion?
Jeff Kirst. As I recall from prior meetings, if we come up short for some reason, the school district is the backstop on these things?
Absolutely. If it were ever the case, and it's hard to imagine it in the near future, but if were ever the case where OPEB assets weren't sufficient to cover obligations, the district remains legally responsible for retiree health insurance benefits, and would have to cover that. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion passes unanimously, and that means we move to Section 3 of the agenda, and I think it's one last chance for public comment. Is that right? Okay, actually, this is the last chance for public comment. All right. Seeing none then, hearing none, our next meeting is near the end of September, September 24th. Again, we kind of have to schedule these late in the quarter because of the delays in reporting from PERS on the RBIF account. So I know we're always a quarter behind when we're looking at performance, but that's unfortunately just the way it has to be. But that'll let you all enjoy your summers. Come back, maybe it'll be a little cooler. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.